It really feels like artificial intelligence went from this niche techie thing to, well, the center of the entire universe almost overnight. And let me tell you, nowhere are the stakes higher or the potential rewards greater than in the world of finance. So today we're going to dig into how this tech is making the incredible leap from our group chats to Wall Street's trading floors. Let's jump in. Okay, first, let's just try to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this thing. A recent paper from the NBR found that ChatGPT already has over 700 million weekly users. Now, to put that in perspective, that's roughly 10% of the entire adult population of the planet, logging on every single week. The speed of this adoption is, honestly, it's just completely unprecedented. And we're not talking about passive users either. These folks are sending more than 2.5 billion messages every single day. That is an absolute avalanche of questions, commands, and conversations. It just goes to show how deeply this technology is weaving itself into our daily lives. So here's the game plan for this explainer. We'll kick things off with the ChatGPT explosion and see what people are actually using it for. Then we'll connect the dots and see how those everyday uses translate from, chit-chat to Wall Street. We'll look at AI's specific financial toolkit, tackle something called the incomplete information problem, and then we'll ask the big one. Is AI a co-pilot or is it an autopilot for finance?
Right, so with a user base that massive, the first thing you have to ask is, what are all those people actually doing with it?
You might think, and it's a fair assumption, that the biggest impact of AI is on our jobs. But the data? It tells a totally different story. That same NBR data shows that a staggering 73% of consumer ChatGPT use is for non-work stuff. The revolution is happening in our personal lives just as much as at the office, maybe even more so.
And when you dig in a little deeper, it turns out that almost 80% of all of those conversations fall into just three main buckets. People are asking for practical guidance, like how-to advice. They're seeking specific information, kind of like a super-powered web search. And they're using it for writing, everything from emails to creative fiction. And these three things, guidance, info, and writing, are the fundamental tasks that we're about to see get supercharged in the world of finance. Okay, so how do these everyday things, asking for advice, looking up facts, writing an email, how do they translate to the high-stakes, high-pressure world of Wall Street? Let's bridge that gap right now. And this, right here, illustrates that transition perfectly. Look, the same core writing capability is being used in both examples, but instead of just drafting a simple email, a financial analyst is using that same AI to dissect and summarize a dense, 100-page regulatory document. It's the exact same fundamental skill, just operating on a whole other professional and analytical level.
So the magic behind all of this? It's something called natural language processing, or NLP. You can think of it as the engine, the core technology that lets AI finally read and understand human language in all its messy, nuanced glory, whether that's a tweet, a news article, or a quarterly earnings call transcript. NLP is the key that unlocks the analysis of these massive amounts of text data.
All right, now we're getting to the tools themselves. How exactly is AI being used in finance? And maybe more importantly, how well does it actually perform compared to the methods that analysts have been relying on for decades?
Generally speaking, it really boils down to two key applications. First up is sentiment analysis, which is basically the ability to read the mood of the market by analyzing text from millions of sources. And second is forecasting and portfolio management, using AI to find those subtle patterns that humans might miss, all to help predict market shifts and optimize investments. And this is where the rubber really meets the road. This table compares a classic forecasting model, called ARIMA, with a modern AI model, called LSTM, which is built to recognize patterns over time. The key number here is RMSE, root mean square error. All you need to know is that a lower score is better, it means a more accurate forecast. And as you can see, the AI model's error rate is less than half of the traditional one. I mean, that is a massive leap in accuracy. And it isn't just forecasting. For that sentiment analysis we just talked about, other research shows that advanced AI language models like Google's BERT can read financial news and predict the market mood with nearly 78% accuracy. For an investor, that gives them a really powerful, data-driven way to understand market psychology in almost real time. Okay, so if this AI is so powerful and so accurate, what's stopping it from just completely taking over? Well, this brings us to a really fundamental challenge in finance, what's known as the incomplete information problem. A paper from the London School of Economics uses this absolutely brilliant analogy. Think about the game Go. Yeah, it's incredibly complex, but it has fixed rules, and you always know what your opponent is trying to do. It's a game of complete information, which is perfect for an AI. But finance? Finance is a game of incomplete information. The rules can change on a dime, you don't know who all the other players are, and you sure as heck don't know what their next moves are going to be. And the takeaway from those LSE researchers is pretty blunt. They say that AI simply will not perform as well when it's playing games with incomplete information. It can't know all the rules at the start, it has to learn them as it goes, and that is incredibly difficult when the game itself is constantly changing. Now, this incomplete information thing creates some very serious real-world risks, which groups like the OECD have highlighted. You've got model risk. That's the classic black box problem where we don't really know why the AI made a certain prediction. You have huge data governance issues, and there's this growing concern that if everyone starts using similar AI models, it could lead to herd behavior and create totally new kinds of systemic risk for the whole market. And all of this leads us to the final, critical question about AI's role today. Is it here to help human experts, or is it here to replace them? Is it a co-pilot, or is it an autopilot?
That NBER paper gives us a really great way to think about this. They call it asking versus doing. Asking is when you use AI for decision support, to get information and analysis to help a person make a better choice. Doing, on the other hand, is when you use AI to just automate a task, to produce the report or write the code itself.
And right now, the consensus is pretty clear. In the complex, incomplete information game of finance, AI is an unbelievably powerful co-pilot. It augments human expertise. It provides the analysis, it spots the patterns, it summarizes the data, it makes the human analyst faster and smarter. But it is not the autopilot flying the plane all by itself. Which leaves us with this one last thought to chew on. We know AI is only going to get more and more powerful. So the essential question that we all have to start grappling with is this: where exactly should we draw the line between human judgment and machine intelligence to make sure our financial systems stay both innovative and stable?